Welcome to Ask Jerry and Rebecca, part of Cold Wax Academy, a free video series where we answer your questions about cold wax medium. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Ask Jerry and Rebecca, coming to you now as part of Cold Wax Academy. Today's question comes to us from Linda Cowan and Beth Billis. And the question, there's two parts to it. The first is, do I mix up a large amount of paint and then start painting, or do I mix my paints as I go? And the second part of it is, what do I do with any leftover paints? So I'm going to start with the first part of that question and about mixing and how much I mix. In general, for my smaller and medium-sized paintings, up to about, I don't know, maybe 30 by 30 or 36 by 36, I just mix my paint as I go because I'm comfortable that in the course of one painting session, I can at least get one full layer done. In some of my larger paintings, say 4 by 4 up to 5 by 5 feet, there are times where even in a whole painting session, I can't get a full layer of that painting done from one corner to the other in the time that I have. So I'm going to have to come back the next day and resume painting. If I have large areas of color, of a single color, and I want to come back the next day and resume, I don't want to have to color match and then work on another area, because it's very likely that those two areas are going to be subtly different and they might be noticeable. So when I have large areas of large paintings that I'm concerned I can't finish in a single session of painting, I do make up enough paint to last that full layer. And then if I do get finished, great, and if I don't, then I'll store it until the next day. So it really depends, but in general, I mix my paints as I go. I like my paint colors to feel organic and related to each other. So very often as I'm painting, I'll take leftovers of one color, bring them into another color, and then keep moving in that painting. And that way the palette stays cohesive and related. It's a very important aspect of my color management. Now, we all have paints left over at the end of the day. And if you're just going to be gone overnight, then it's very, very easy. All you need to do is just scoop your paints up into their own little piles, or combine them. And what I mean by that is, if I have some dark brown and I have a black, I'll usually just push those together in my pile at the end of the day and then store those until the next day. But you do need to cover them because they'll get a skin on them if you don't, and those little bits of that skin will not dissolve again. So what I do is just tidy up my paints into piles and then put a layer of wax paper or saran wrap over those. Sometimes if it's really warm or really arid, like my climate here in Mexico, I'll give them a mist or two with some odorless mineral spirits just to wet the surface before I put the wax paper or saran wrap on that surface. Now, if I finish and I know I'm not going to be back to the studio for a period of time, like I'm teaching a workshop or going away, but I have these colors that I really like and I want to keep them for future painting, then what I do is I wrap them tightly in saran wrap, I put them in a Ziploc bag, and then I put them in my freezer. Now, I put them in my food freezer, but I would encourage you, if you can, to put them in a dedicated freezer just so you're not putting chemicals next to your food. But I'll be honest and tell you that that's what I do. Now, why do I do this? I want you to think about how paints cure, oil paints cure. It's a chemical reaction with oxygen. And the two things that needs are time and oxygen. So by covering your paints with wax paper or saran wrap, or by misting them with some odorless mineral spirits before you do that, you help keep oxygen out of that reaction. temperature for most reactions usually speeds up that reaction. So if you leave your paint sitting out and it's 90 degrees in your studio, that reaction is going to be fast. But if you seal up your paint, put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer, then you slow that reaction way down and you should be able to use that paint for months. Now, it is important to realize that once you mix wax and oil paints and then you get some air in there, you've started that chemical reaction and it's going to move forward regardless of what you do. So there is a limit to how long you can store that mixture of wax and oils. You can't come back 10 years from now, thaw that out and start using it. But I have come back months later and used paints that I've stored in my freezer. So, Linda and Beth, I hope that helps answer your questions, and we'll see you next episode. Thanks.